In the old days, a Ute was a Holden Commodore or a Ford Falcon that had a tray on the back, but now they've grown up and we now have what the Americans call a pickup truck. And one of the biggest around is this, the Chevrolet Silverado. Hello, welcome to Four Wheels and a Seat. My name's Alex Dalrymple. This is my channel where I review new cars every week in a very simple, straightforward way for people looking to buy a new car who don't know which way to turn. Hit the subscribe button down below, the notification bell, and if you enjoy the video, please give me a like. Not yet a huge seller in Australia. GM sell over 500,000 of these in the US every year. They arrive in Australia in left-hand drive straight out of the factory, and they are converted in Melbourne by Walkinshaw to right-hand drive with something like 400 parts added on and changed. And they do such a good job you would never know that they weren't factory delivered that way. And because of that, unfortunately, we do pay substantially more for a Silverado than they do in the States. And oh my God, this car gets a lot of attention because there is nothing like it on the road. I mean, just look at this enormous grille. It is huge. It has so much road presence. Up here on the bonnet, just so the entire world knows exactly what it is that you're driving, on both sides of the bonnet, we've got Silverado and 6.2 litre, meaning that this car has a 6.2 litre V8 engine in it. It makes an awesome noise, but we'll get to that in a minute. Around the side here, Z71 or Z71 badging, 20-inch alloys. They look actually a little bit smaller than that just because the tyres are so fat, and we've got huge wheel arches here. Big step here along the side, which you actually really do need to get into this car just because it's so high up. Step on that and you can see the sunroof up on top. I really like what they've done with the wing mirrors here. They actually have sort of frameless glass sticking out, and the whole unit kind of moves when you adjust the mirrors. This is a big American car. It's the LTZ model, so this is really more designed with towing in mind rather than going off-road, although you can go off-road in this car. Being American, there's a lot of labor-saving devices in this car. There's actually no fuel cap here, so you just sort of push the nozzle through there because you don't want to have to waste time unscrewing a fuel cap. Around the side here, GM specialty vehicles. I think that's actually a promo sticker. It doesn't look like it's permanent because there's a bit of bubbling on there. We've got a step here so you can step up and get up onto the tray. I really like these rear light clusters. They look good. More Silverado badging, the embossed Chevrolet logo there, and underneath the powered tray here, the tailgate, we've got a big storage space, 1,781 litres up to the top of the cover here. This does open, but I can't get it to open. They gave me a remote control to use to open it, but it just doesn't seem to want to work. But you can put 781 kilos worth of cargo back here. And you can close it by remote control as well. This thing rides up so high I can actually just sort of stand here comfortably. Not as much to see in the engine bay as I thought there might be because the engine's actually down quite low in the body and there's a lot of stuff kind of resting on top of it. But underneath all of that is a 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8 engine that outputs 313 kilowatts and 624 newton meters of torque. Fuel economy is not something Chevrolet like to talk about on the website. I couldn't find any stats for it anywhere, but I can tell you over the last few days of me driving around town, I've been getting 17 litres per 100 kilometres on a combined cycle, and well, you need deep pockets to keep this car running, put it that way. Power goes to all four wheels, or two if you're on tarmac, via a 10-speed automatic transmission, and brake towing capacity is 4.5 tonnes. Inside, and I really like this interior. Now, it's been largely remanufactured in Melbourne after this car arrived from the States, but you would never know. I mean, they've done such a good job in pretty much remaking everything you see in front of you so that it can be right-hand drive. They've obviously kept as much as they can from the original car, so there are still a few things that are a little bit left-hand drive biased, but generally speaking, everything is exactly where you want it to be. We've got loads of buttons, really nice materials, comfortable seats, and it's so wide. It feels like the passenger is almost in another car, they're so far away. The rear vision mirror isn't just a rear vision mirror, of course, because it's a screen connected to a camera pointing out over the back of the tray. But at the flick of a switch, it can also be turned back into a mirror. Center console screen is 13 inches. It doesn't do a heck of a lot on its own. There's no digital radio, there's no native navigation, but it does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Plus, you can also get a lot of vehicle information, especially if you're trailering, which we would call towing here. It's a bit like being in an aeroplane. You're doing a pre-departure checklist here, so you're making sure that the electrical connector is plugged in, the lights are working properly, the tires are properly inflated. You can go through this checklist if you're towing and make sure that everything's good and ready to go. The cameras on here, there are cameras dotted all around this car with no less than about 14 different camera angles you can choose from, including top-down 360, which you really do need when you're parking just because of the size of this thing. A whole range of buttons underneath that too for the parking sensors and the auto on-off, plus the automatic tailgate and a few other things there. Climate controls, again, a lot more buttons, but it's good that they've kept all of the climate controls out of the center screen, so it is actual physical buttons and dials that are much easier to use. Trailer braking controls over here on the right. We've got USB-C, USB-A port, little tray here and another tray and another tray. There's storage for everything. We've got big cup holders, this big gear shifter which has such a nice feel to it. The center console bin, I think, is the biggest I've seen on any car. It is absolutely huge with a removable tray. It's a big bin. We've got USB-C, USB-A in there as well. Wireless phone charging here in the middle. Head-up display in front of the driver. It's a little bit distorted, and it does have a lot of information on it showing you the angle that you're traveling at, if you're going up a hill or if you're going off to the side. All of that kind of information is useful when you're towing. The digital instrument cluster is pretty good. There's a few different display modes, all of the essential information that you'd expect. You can put on a simplified version of that if it's all a bit too overwhelming. The steering wheel is pretty much straight out of the Chevrolet parts bin, I believe. A lot of buttons on this steering wheel, not just in front but also behind. Track controls as well as volume controls are on the rear here, right next to the paddle shifters. There is only one stalk here on the steering column, and that controls both your indicators as well as the wipers. It's a little bit annoying, a bit fiddly to use. There's also electric adjustment here for the height and reach adjustment. More controls over here on the right-hand side. There are exclusive controls for the head-up display, so you can easily make adjustments to that rather than having to go through the center screen, so that's a good thing. Four-wheel drive controls over here, as well as the drive mode controls. More lighting controls over here on the right. The seats are leather. They are electrically adjustable for the driver and front passenger. There's also lumbar support. They're actually very comfortable. I find that the seating position, normally I like to sit quite low in the cabin, but I really can't do that in this car because then I can't see to the front of the bonnet clearly. So I do sit up just a little bit higher, but I mean, there's no shortage of headroom. There is so much space here. Quite a lounge-like sort of feeling sitting here. In terms of visibility, it's fantastic out the front. The wing mirrors are nice and big, but there is a massive blind spot here on this B pillar. Really, cars completely disappear when they're coming up alongside you, so you do have to keep an eye on your blind spot monitoring in the wing mirrors. But otherwise, the thought of doing a long trip in this car is actually quite appealing. As expected, back here it is just so comfortable. There is so much room. At 190 centimeters tall, I'm not even remotely close to the seat in front in my own driving position, and my feet aren't even under the seat in front of me. I mean, and also it's a little bit like being in an EV because there is no drive shaft column here in the middle. It's almost flat, so there's even more room, heaps of headroom, armrest, cup holders. In the center here, the outboard seats are heated. There's another USB-A, USB-C, a couple of air vents, no rear zone of climate control. I'm disappointed. But otherwise, very comfortable. Oh, and this back window here opens as well electrically. There's a control at the front for that. Oh, I forgot to mention before, the sound system in here is by Bose. It has 7 speakers and actually sounds really good. I do have to say that parking this thing is far from fun. In fact, I dread it. It's just not built with Australia in mind. We have smaller parking spaces here than they do in America. You know how, like, if you're looking for somewhere to park on the road, and you know, generally speaking, you probably look for the closest spot, and you'll kind of go, oh, I'll go a little bit further, and then I'll just do a U-turn to get into it, and you know, I can go back and forth a little bit to try and squeeze in. I just don't want to try it with this because it's a pain. It's so big that anything that would be a U-turn in a regular car is at least a 3-point turn in this. And just the constant back and forth to get into tight spots. I'd rather drive around a little bit further and find a larger spot to park in. Then of course there's parking stations. Well, all of the parking spots are too small for this. So this sticks out no matter where you park it. And they're also just a little bit too narrow. Sometimes you're over the line and you have no choice. At 6 meters long and over 2 meters wide, going around corners and roundabouts, sometimes it's just easier to go over the top. So no surprises here, it drives almost exactly how you would imagine. It's big and heavy and kind of lumbers along. There's no shortage of power, but it's just kind of a bit numb and very comfortable. Where Japanese Utes are sort of more about precision and finesse, this is just about power and going quickly in a straight line. The other day in the wet, I actually felt like I'd lost the back end a little bit just because there's so much power going to those rear wheels when it's in two-wheel drive mode, which is all you need when you're driving around town. And the back was sliding all over the place. Not dangerously so, but enough to give me a bit of a start. And that's just a bit of a Ute thing when you've got so much of the vehicle's weight at the front and in the middle, and yet you're driving all the power to the back. Of course it's going to come a little bit loose if you take a corner too quickly. Now this is a bit harrowing. I'm heading onto the Sydney Harbour Bridge here, and I've got a truck right next to me on my right, and because I'm so wide I can barely fit in the lane that I'm in because the truck is kind of nudging into my lane a little bit. So I'm just gonna have to ease off here a little bit. But seriously, the only things that are bigger than this on the road are trucks and buses. You do have such a commanding view over everything, and people get out of your way, which I really like. Is the Chevy Silverado a turn-back car, a car so good looking that you have to turn back and look at it after you parked it? Yeah, it is. It's a really good looking Ute / pickup truck that looks so distinctive and so American on the roads that you can't help but look at it. Plus there's the fact that there just aren't many of these around. I mean, I haven't seen another one in the week that I've had this. So it has been turning a lot of heads and craning a lot of necks. Plus, of course, you have to turn back and look at it after you parked it because that's the only way you can know that you successfully got into the spot. And I think this is also probably the first time I've actually been in a car with a digital rear vision mirror where it's actually useful. I generally think they're a bit of a gimmick in most cars they're in, but here it's useful because if you just look through the regular mirror, you're not seeing anything. I mean, you're really only seeing the back seat and a little bit out through the window there, which just overlooks the bed. But with this digi mirror, you can actually see really clearly what's going on behind you. Okay, let's have a listen to this V8 in action. Oh my God, that's a wonderful noise. But I think I just went through about 14 litres of petrol doing that. I never thought I would enjoy a Ute as much as this. I think this is actually probably the one I have liked the most. I wouldn't buy one, but I do like this, and I totally get why people are into these. In terms of being a practical car around the city, absolutely not. I can't even put this in my carport at home, it's too big. But it is a lot of fun to drive. And it is very easy to forget just how big this thing is while you're driving around until you catch yourself in a reflection on a shop window or something and you just go, oh my God, that's massive. And this actually isn't even the biggest Silverado you can get. The off-road version rides up another 10 centimeters higher and is about 40 centimeters longer. So while a big American-style pickup truck is perhaps a bit of a niche product in Australia, they are undeniably kind of cool. I mean, I sort of want one. But with all the extra added cost of keeping it running and just the stress of parking a car like this around town, I'm just not quite sure it's for me.